the same class and the same boat, and we have the same common enemy, Amazon and Jeff Bezos. Who's with me? That's how you organize. It was the same problem with the anti-war rally a year ago, and Code Pink didn't want to show up to it because there were some speakers that they didn't agree with on the LGBTQ issue, which has nothing to do with fucking ending wars. And it's the joke I made, and I still make it in my act. Yeah, I want to stop a nuclear war, but not with those people. That's how. So it's the same thing. So anyway, it was too bad. I think that guy's doing great work. I think I think that the stress of his job, the work he's doing, has gotten to him. So that was unfortunate. He undermined his own work. When I'm explaining, well, why do you think that both the establishment and both parties are on board for Kamala Harris? Why do you think Google, who's in bed with the deep state, the CIA, the military-industrial complex, is doing this for Kamala Harris? Why do you think that is? I'm explaining, so he doesn't understand. So I'm explaining why that is. I'm explaining his own work to him, and obviously he's got some problems. Obviously, first thing he talked about is he had a mental breakdown at Joe Rogan's show. I get it. It's very stressful what he's doing. When you go up against the establishment, it's stressful, and you get everybody coming at you, and everybody's calling him a Trumper, and he couldn't help but do the same thing, which was unfortunate. Okay. But, it's not the first time someone's done that on my show to me, and I bet you it ain't going to be the last time. Let's bring on Ryan Dawson. Hey, Ryan Dawson is a radio show host, podcaster, author, and documentary filmmaker. He is the host of ANC Report, a platform featuring podcasts on politics and economics, as well as a forum for anti-neoconservative discussions. Look at that. His work has been featured on a variety of TV news networks, including RT, MSNBC, as well as political satire comedy shows like The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. Please welcome to the show, Ryan Dawson. Hey, Ryan.
Good to be here, Jimmy. That what you were talking about earlier, we call the light switch brain. It's either or. It's like Daryl Cooper going on with Tucker Carlson and saying Churchill was a monster, and everyone going, "So you love Hitler?" It's one or the other for these people.
Okay. I didn't see that interview, but yeah, I've seen the reaction to it. Yeah,
it's just silly. Like, he was just saying Churchill wasn't good either, and he was definitely not endorsing Stalin or Hitler or any of those monsters. But the way the light switch brain works is like, if you're not A, you have to be B. And so if you're criticizing Kamala, you must love everything Trump does.
Yeah,
that's how they work. Tribalism.
So yeah, I mean, I saw somebody make this point on Twitter. Criticize Kamala Harris, and then tell people you're not a Trump supporter, and they don't know what to do. That their brain short circuits. Like, blah, 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 blah. No, you have to be a Trumper. Yeah, but you would agree with what I said about that Bobby Kennedy's speech at that Trump rally. Did you see it? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I mean, those are all positions you hold, and he's part of the Trump administration. So, but what I thought was interesting is when you asked Epstein why Google is after Trump, and he wouldn't answer. Like, here's why: Trump wants to get out of Ukraine. The MIC hates his guts. That's all he had to say. But what happens with these people is they overcorrect because everyone's calling him a Trumper, so he feels like he has to prove how much he isn't one. Yeah, and so that's what happens, I think.
Yeah.
We're on Rumble, right? This is not on YouTube?
This is Rumble.
So I don't have to pump the brakes like Dick Cheney going down a hill.
Yeah, that's right.
That's good.
So I just wanted to, I wanted to cover this story with you. I saw this the other day. Steven Crowder, right? Now, Steven Crowder, I haven't watched. I understand he got demonetized on YouTube, and I'm against that. And so I lost I took a lot of heat for that. They're like, why are you defending Steven Crowder? I'm not I'm defending free speech.
Free speech. Yeah.
That's what I'm defending my own ability to make a living on YouTube. That's what I'm doing. So if I can let someone take away, just like Alex Jones, people said the same thing when I said it was wrong to ban Alex Jones on social media. And they're like, why are you defending Alex Jones? I go, I'm not defending Alex Jones. I'm defending free speech. And by defending free speech, I'm defending myself. And then, of course,
I got blanket banned before anybody.
Oh, really?
Yeah, way before Jones or anything. I got kicked off MySpace in 2005 and AOL.
No kidding.
And I was the first person kicked off YouTube First person. I got blanket banned on everything.
So
Finally got a Twitter back last year when Elon came. I've seen some of my tweets on your show. I appreciate that.
no
I think
problem.
you're trying to give the establishment a heart attack there.
Well, so Steven Crowder, now this is an interesting piece of video. He did some undercover video, and a lot of people will dismiss this, just like they dismissed Veritas when they exposed Pfizer, that guy from Pfizer, because they don't like who's holding the camera.
Right.
So it doesn't matter who's holding the camera. It doesn't matter who's holding that camera. It could be anybody. So Steven Crowder tweeted this out. The Department of Justice Chief of Public Affairs admits that Trump indictments are a politically motivated perversion of justice, reveals lawfare involved in making former presidents a convicted felon backfired on Democrats. His former colleague Alvin Bragg's case is nonsense. You want to watch it? Here we go.
Sure.
Yeah. Nicholas Biasi is the Chief of Public Affairs for the Department of Justice's Southern District of New York. Something you may be familiar with, and the most prominent federal trial court in America.
Those felonies did nothing to stop Trump from running.
No, in fact, they made him more relevant.
Did that backfire?
Sure did.
And
The whole thing is disgusting. They're just out to get him. And that's why, like, he's surging in the polls. It's a perversion of justice. He was stacking charges and rearranging things just to make it fit a case. No, to be honest with you, I think the case is nonsense. State levels are Wild West. They're like idiots. They don't care. They're all political. So yeah, this guy's probably going to try to lock him up, and it's going to be ugly. They're so obsessed with getting him.
who is they?
So this is the Chief Public Affairs Officer for the U.S. Department of Justice in New York on a hidden camera, an undercover camera, admitting everything that should be obvious to everybody. It certainly was obvious to former governor of New York, Governor Cuomo, who, when he went on Bill Maher's show, he said basically the same thing. But for some reason, it's not front page news. How is that not front page news? That the governor of New York and now the Chief Public Affairs Officer from the U.S. Department of Justice in New York now admit what Trump has been saying all along and what we've been saying at this show, that this is called lawfare, that they're doing to Trump something they would never do to anybody else, and it's to prosecute their political opponents, which is the thing they say Trump is going to do to his political opponents. They're actually in the process of doing it, and this proves it. And
Their accusations are confessions.
And so that I have said that too. Every accusation they make is a confession. So let me play the rest of this, and then I'll get your comment on it, Ryan.
Sure.
I've known him for 15 years. He used to work in my office. Before he decided to prosecute Trump, did you know who he was? You do now. I'm not sure what he wants to be, but I know he's not happy just being the DA of New York County. So now he's very ambitious. Every real estate person in New York does what he did. Nobody's ever been charged with this until him.
Mr. Biasi is just saying the quiet part out loud.
So he's saying the quiet part out loud. And you're not supposed to say that. And this should be a big scandal. But you know why it's not a big scandal? Because the establishment media won't publicize it. And if the media doesn't report it, guess what? It's not a story. Just like you didn't know they did a January 6th in Brazil to get rid of Bolsonaro. They did the exact thing they did here, they did there. And Matt Taibbi and I were laughing about it. And, well, what I would say is obviously this Department of Justice Chief of Public Affairs, he's a Russian. He's got to be. What else could I tell you about? What else can I tell my liberal brain, because I can't handle being this wrong about everything? Anyway, Ryan, what do you have to say about this?
Well, they use censorship, defamation, and lawfare, usually in that order, to get rid of people. They've done it to Trump. They did defamation towards Russell Brand and the Tates and Candace Owens. They
Tulsi
went after
Gabbard.
Tulsi Gabbard, yeah, and Google censored her too. All those people have been censored in some way also. And then you had Brazil kicking off X, although it looks like they'll probably be back soon. And obviously Pavel from Telegram being arrested in France, and Rumble being banned in France and several other countries. They do not want you to have free speech, because if you break the monopoly on the lies fall apart. They have to be constantly reinforced. And if there's even one place where people can hear the counter narrative, can you imagine back in 2002, 2001, if there had been one channel saying there are no weapons of mass destruction? You never got to hear that. Everybody was uniform in their lies about the WMDs, they even went to the UN with cartoon pictures of mobile weapons labs, with fake anthrax. There was no dissenting voice. And back then there was nothing to even get kicked off of, because there was no social media.
Right.
So as bad as people think it is now, at least you have something to be censored from. Because before it was so much worse. It was whatever was on TV, that was it. That was the narrative, and they didn't have to worry about it. Now when they're going into hyperdrive trying to lie. Everyone knew this about Trump. I mean, they're doing Russiagate 4.0 right now. Do you remember the story where they said he went to Russia and had hookers pee on him?
Yeah.
That sounds more similar to something Hunter Biden probably did.
Yeah.
It's like whatever they do, they accuse their enemy of. And this is not, I know how bad Trump is on Israel. Like, I got a boycott Israel flag back there, right? I know I'm not like endorsing his policies, but they are after him. And he has some policies that are good. Kamala has none. And Jimmy, I'm going to celebrate this being on your show with this special coffee I have here. It's from, it's actually called Boycott Israel, which makes it taste better.
Ha ha.
And I've got a special mug I think you'll enjoy too. I'm just trying to give, I hope Lindsey Graham is hate watching while he's shaving his legs. Here he is. It's the John McCain Rest in Hell mug.
Oh, look at that. Nothing against shaving your legs. It helps me swim faster.
There you go.
That's why
I don't think that's why Lindsey does it.
That's why I do it.
Lindsey Graham is so far in the closet he can see Narnia in his rearview mirror.
Well, let me show. This is that's how I responded to that video. I said, even if you hate Trump, this should scare you and outrage you. The very thing they said Trump was going to do, and what made him dangerous to our democracy, was that he would use the criminal justice system against his political opponents. And here they are admitting that's exactly what they've been doing to him. So if they can do this to a former president of the United States, they will certainly do it to anyone who's the establishment wants to silence and control. They certainly would have done this to Bernie Sanders if he would have won the primary, but they rigged the primaries instead.
Yep.
They would have certainly did this to Jill Stein or Cornel West if they were a threat to win the election or even had a significant impact on it. The point is, they've been lying again. They've been lying to you again, saying that democracy is on the ballot when tyranny, authoritarianism, election rigging is actually on the ballot. That's actually what we're looking at. Would you agree with that?
I mean, you summed it up, and this is consistent with these people. Remember, they accused Trump of quid pro quo, but it was Joe Biden on tape at the CFR meeting, as well as the Anti-Corruption Agency of Ukraine, talking about firing the prosecutor looking into PRISM.
That's exactly right.
No-show job. Like, everything they've said about Trump, they're guilty of themselves. And everything they say about Russia, Israel actually does.
And yeah, exactly. Our country, it's like we're this traumatized, beaten spouse who still defends their nation through the abuse. That's really what America's good inside. I just know it, Ryan. I just know it.
The only thing we get from Israel is more demands. You're talking about a culture of people, a substantial portion of the public supports raping and torturing prisoners as they colonize Gaza and destroy the West Bank simultaneously. A bunch of psychopaths, and we're giving them billions of dollars.
So,
and that's one of the saddest things. You want to talk about not being on the news? That's not going to get covered.
No.
They're murdering babies. I mean, they're dropping bombs on apartments, hospitals, mosques, churches.
I'm not allowed to show that on YouTube. That's for sure.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Nothing will get you banned faster.
So here's one more response I had. This is just more proof that you're not living in a democracy, but you're living in an authoritarian oligarchy run by authoritarian, tyrannical criminals who control the government, the media, the courts, the elections, and ultimately they control you. Lots of dutiful peasants will choose to ignore this video because they don't like the source. They're already being trained to do so. Your government and democracy was stolen from you decades ago. Most of the people prefer to ignore this truth and just take it, which is why our country is going to shit and why we'll never have nice things again. Things like a thriving middle class.
Yeah.
So,
I would change oligarchy to plutocracy, which is ruled by money. It's more of what we call the donor class.
yeah.
These people. This is Epstein's client list, by the way.
Aha.
I literally mapped it out. But like these are the people, and there was that story just a few months ago on the WhatsApp group of a bunch of billionaires that were getting together to manipulate a mayor in New York to go after people protesting genocide. This donor class, like when people say the deep state, the elite, the whatever, that's who you're talking about. It's a clique of billionaires. They're international, and they have certain agendas from methods of profiteering through government. It's like John Cusack said, the government's a giant ATM machine, but it's coming out of your bank account and it's going into select commercial interests. That's the problem.
Isn't it ironic that John Cusack's a Russiagator?
Yeah, well, he's blocked me on Twitter too. I don't know why.
He blocked me on Twitter too over Russiagate.
Oh, maybe that's what it was. I don't know. There's been several Russiagates. There's a new Russiagate.
It's happening. Yeah, we're going to cover that story in a second. But yeah, there's a new Russiagate happening for sure. So this should be.
It was right on time, right? It's like, oh, really?
Right on time.
Gosh, are you saying the Justice Department would lie about Russia? I'm shocked.
Yeah. So the people who are destroying the America are the CIA, the NSA, the FBI, all the three-letter things that will destroy the America. The one we didn't catch is the EGO, which is the ego of the donor class, the arrogance.
It's ESG and DEI too.
You're right. And, I've made this case. It's not just in the United States. It's in the entire West. It comes through Davos, the WEF. They have the same agenda. And it's to create, a lot of it is to create chaos in the West, because chaos always favors the establishment. And, when you see them do a January 6th, which was obviously an FBI style, when a congressman asked Christopher Wray, the head of the FBI, did you have FBI assets dressed up like MAGA supporters inside the Capitol before the riot started? And he said, I can't answer that question. Well, you just answered it.
That is an answer. Yeah, that means yes, of course. That's why they had dropped Tucker Carlson, I'm pretty sure. I mean, he covered a lot of taboo subjects, but J6, they act like J6 was worse than 9/11.
That's right. Yes.
Which is insane.
And so they did the same thing. And I just found out because Twitter got banned in Brazil. I was reading an article saying that they did the same thing in Brazil to Bolsonaro. So how this happened, that they were afraid Lula was going to become president, meaning the Western billionaire class. And so he was too far left for them. He was scary for them. He was like Bernie Sanders. And so they put him in jail. They put Lula in jail. They thought the center-right guy was going to win the election, just like they thought Hillary Clinton was going to win the election against Trump. But Hillary lost, and so did the center-right guy in Brazil, and Bolsonaro won, who they say is the Trump of Brazil. And they're like, oh, what do? We screwed up, just like they screwed up. And so what they had to do is they had to let Lula back out of prison because he's the only guy who could beat Bolsonaro at the ballot box. They let him out. He wins, and they immediately do their own January 6th event down in Brazil, and then they pass laws to make it illegal for Bolsonaro to run for president again. And it's like Matt Taibbi was on my show. He's like, they don't come up with a different story. No, it's the exact same thing. And they don't have
provocatoring.
Yeah, it's called provocatoring.
Provocatoring, and you're not allowed to look at it. And if you do, you'll get canceled.
That's right.
And it's the subjects that, okay, if you talk about it, you get canceled. So you get flack when you're over the target. Those are the things you have the most confidence in being correct about, are the things that you're not even allowed to question at all. And one of those is the sanctity of the Zionist state. And the same thing with September 11th. Like all the kook stuff you're allowed to say. The dumbest takes on that ever are on Netflix, they're on YouTube. But anybody that gets near to what actually happened gets removed from the internet. And it's the same thing, like the same thing with the virus. It's like the virus deniers and the weirdos and stuff, they got amplified. But the people that had a serious nuance take, you didn't get to hear at all. And you can go down the list with that. They amplify the kook stuff on purpose to make it look like conspiracies are a bunch of insane people, because those people do exist. You have airplane deniers and stuff like that too. But there is a middle ground, and that's the voice you never get to hear.
The fact that that isn't front page news, the fact that that isn't played on every lefty independent news show is a tragedy. And it just goes to show you the control they have. And there's very few independent news shows on the left that don't support Kamala Harris. They go right along with the CIA narrative, and they repeat it.
Yeah, it's like the Handel Directive. That's sort of been recycled in the news in Israel, at least, but not in the U.S. And that got reported right away by Mondo Weiss and the Gray Zone. And then I think last June, Haaretz finally picked it up. But it's not until 500,000 people are protesting in Tel Aviv that they bring this up. All these huge stories, like the example I usually go to is think about the Glenn Maxwell trial. That should have been bigger than O.J. Simpson. And yet it got basically no coverage at all.
What trial is
because
that?
Glenn Maxwell, Epstein's right-hand woman.
Oh, you're talking about Ghislaine?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That got no coverage.
Ghislaine, too. That's what she was.
Yeah.
It's Glenn. Yeah, she had a huge trial, and there was no public interest. I mean, the public interest is there. There was no media interest in it.
That's right.
And these are some of the most powerful people in the world. So I'm listed here. I don't know if that'll show up. But it's like people are like, "Where's the client list?" I'm like, I released that years ago. I've been on that case since 2007.
How did you get a hold of that list?
Because I talked to the victims, and I went through like these things, this stuff. Every time they say, "Here's a new file," it's not new. It's the same thing with September 11th. Like, we have victims' families suing for information we already have. Like, we already know from the Joint Inquiry Senate investigation, is called the JIS report, into 9/11, that Saudi Arabia, through Omar Bayoumi and Osama Basnan, did give logistical and financial support to Nawif al-Hazmi and Khalid al-Midhar. That is already known and admitted by our own Senate investigation. The problem is people don't even know that investigation happened and don't know to read it. They only know the 9/11 Commission report, which they were told not to read. Because you've got people like Alex Jones that just swerve you off the cliff, get you barking up the wrong tree about Building 7 or whatever, and not looking into the meat of it. We have a lot of information on these things, Epstein too, that is not secret. It's not hidden. It's just you never heard of it because you have the charlatan parade out there distracting the hell out of everybody. And we got these clients. Like, they're in his calendar. There's people, there's names in the black book. This is not just a copy of names in the black book. A lot of people in the black book are just people they knew who were innocent. These people got sued. There was a case for JP Morgan Chase. There was different cases out of the Virgin Islands with Denise George. And we know about James Staley and Glenn Dubin and all this. I mean, it's come right out of the mouths of the girls that they raped. And it's just not all in one place. It's not like a list locked in a locker. You have to gather up all the stories and, and go through it. But no one wants to, they act like we live in a Marvel cartoon or something. Like, oh yeah, we're going to find a folder in a lockbox somewhere. That's not, no one does that. Although they did find tapes and CDs in his New York rape mansion, which did have Selena Dubin listed on the front of one of the CDs. That box disappeared for days and then was returned. And the FBI is just sitting on it. I mean, where's the public pressure saying, okay, what's on those? Says AV, on there, adult video. That's what that means. There's a lot of evidence that's been gathered. The problem is we can't get this information in front of the right people. The really knowledgeable people don't have a voice.
Over to Steph.
Okay, here we go, Jimmy. That one faster. Here we go. Oh, I read that one, spike protein. All right. Twitter says, love your vibes, Steph. Thank you. You know how I feel about you, Twitter. Steph, can you read some super chat in Kamala's voice? In honor of the strong and independent Democrat candidate, keep up the good work. Brock, how was that okay, Brock? So, Diago Fricks. Thank you, Diago Fricks. Much appreciated for that question. Let's go here. Candace
Okay.
Strike. Much appreciated. Back to Jimmy. Jokes.
Oh, hang on. It's back
Jokes.
to stuff.
The Lorax, the biggest mistake the founding fathers made was to imagine that the masses were capable of making it all work and keeping it the balance. Like Carlin said, this is the best we can do. All right, let's see here. Super chats. Jimmy, and this is funny. Nonya, you say, Jimmy, your take on defunding police is garbage. You clearly live in a nice part of town where you can complain about parking tickets. Well, one, we don't complain about parking tickets because, Nonya, I'm going to push back on this. We don't get them.
I have a handicap.
All right.
I have handicap parking.
Yeah, and
I have a handicap parking placard, so I don't get any tickets.
And we made an oath to ourselves, especially when we were auditioning, for actors and actresses. And yeah, I said actresses. I'm taking a stand. I'm sick of people calling them actors. You don't get Best Actress award with a dick. To be seen, right? So anyways, my point is this, that we don't get parking tickets. That's where I'm taking. And, I don't know what you're talking about when Jimmy's garbage about defunding the police. Have you seen how much they're funding police? Have you seen it? Have you seen what they're wearing? Police in Los Angeles, they wear like they're going to war. All the gear. Have you seen the police at all the protests? What they're wearing and all of that? They're wearing military cover. So, do our police need that, or do we need a new style of policing? Do we need intervention? I don't need police coming and hassling a homeless person. I need a social worker. I need somebody who's going to help them and facilitate and give them, give them a hot meal or give them water, give them shelter. I would like to see more services that we're expanding that concept of our police, but we expand it. They used to be called peacekeepers. Don't you remember that? So that's how I feel about that, Nonya. Okay. Back to Jim.